No one could have imagined that the life of Clara, a rich and powerful young woman, would change completely in just one night. In everyone's eyes, she had it all: an influential family, an imposing mansion in the city's most upscale neighborhood, designer clothes that sparkled under the lights of endless parties, and friends who seemed to always be by her side. But behind that perfect smile and those eyes that reflected an almost unshakable confidence, Clara carried a profound loneliness, a feeling of emptiness that neither gold nor applause could fill. Each day was a repetition of luxurious moments, superficial encounters, and empty conversations. The wealth that surrounded her, though fascinating to others, was for her merely a facade, a barrier that isolated her from the real world and what truly mattered. On that fateful night, the wind blew hard and the heavy clouds hid the moon, as if the sky itself sensed something extraordinary was about to happen. Clara drove down the road to her house, her headlights illuminating the light rain falling on the asphalt. The city, normally so lively and noisy, seemed strangely silent, as if the universe had held its breath. She was tired, not just physically, but from all the invisible weight she carried: expectations, obligations, judgments. Every turn in the road seemed to lead her to an unknown destination, and at that moment, no one could have imagined that fate awaited her with a brutal twist. The accident happened suddenly and mercilessly. A second of distraction, the sudden glare of a headlight coming in the opposite direction, and everything changed. Darkness took over, mixing pain and confusion in a whirlwind of sensations Clara would never forget. When she awoke, there was no wealth, no luxury, no familiar faces of family and friends. There was only profound silence and a place she had never imagined being: a modest orphanage with softly painted walls, the smell of simple food, and the distant sound of children's laughter. The world she knew was gone, as if ripped from her memory along with her identity. Clara couldn't remember who she was. Every detail of her previous life seemed evaporated, every memory erased. She stared at her reflection in a small antique mirror, and the woman she saw didn't match what she believed herself to be. Who was this person? How had she gotten there? Why wasn't anyone she knew by her side? The sense of loss was overwhelming, and the fear of the unknown mingled with a strange relief. For the first time, there were no expectations, no pressures, no social obligations. Just an unfamiliar place, unfamiliar children, and the silent opportunity to start over, even if she didn't know where to begin. As she walked through the orphanage's hallways, Clara felt curious glances at her. Children playing in the courtyard would stop for a moment, watching her as if they sensed something familiar, but couldn't quite pinpoint why. Every gesture, every smile from those little ones seemed to awaken forgotten echoes within her heart. And then, amid the jumble of unfamiliar faces, one gaze stood out. A gaze that made her chest race, that brought an intense and disconcerting sense of déjà vu. Someone was watching her closely, with a mixture of recognition and surprise. It was a silent moment, yet charged with meaning. The person watching her approached slowly, as if afraid to break the fragile barrier between past and present. A whispered name, almost like a pierced the dense atmosphere of the orphanage. Clara. The mere utterance of that name made something inside her tremble, even if the memory didn't immediately return. Something deep an ancient connection that had resisted time and oblivion, began to resurface, as if a timid light were trying to pierce the darkness that dominated her mind. And in that moment, Clara realized that, although her life as she knew it was gone, destiny still had plans for her. Plans she could never have. Imagined plans that would challenge her, transform her, and perhaps show her that the true value of life lay not in the riches she possessed, but in human relationships, in unexpected affection, and in the ability to reconnect with what truly matters. The night that changed everything didn't just bring loss. It brought mystery, it brought encounter, it brought the opportunity to discover a life Clara never knew existed. A life of simplicity, genuine emotion, and truth money could never buy. And as the rain continued to fall outside, a new chapter of her story began to be written, filled with uncertainty, hope, and the subtle glow of a secret about to be revealed. No one could have imagined that this rich young woman, accustomed to luxury and superficiality, would find in the heart of an orphanage what she needed most. Not memories of power or fortune, but the possibility of reconnecting with herself and with those who, in some way, had always been connected to her, even if time had tried to erase everything. Clara, heiress to $1 million fortune, lived surrounded by luxury, extravagant parties, and a world of carefully constructed appearances. Every detail of her life seemed perfect to others. Imported cars that gleamed in the sun, designer clothes lined up in impeccable closets, endless parties where smiles mingled with champagne glasses and envious glances. But behind every smile there was something no one saw: a profound loneliness, a constant rush, and an unbearable feeling of emptiness. Clara was surrounded by people, but she felt completely alone. Superficial conversations, empty compliments, hugs that conveyed no true warmth. All of this filled her routine, but never her heart. She woke every morning in her immense room, staring out windows that overlooked seemingly eternal gardens, and silently wondered if she would ever feel anything real. Each day was a repetition of carefully planned events. Her every gesture was expected, every word to be just right, every smile had to be convincing. She was admired, envied, desired, but at the same time lost within herself. Clara's life felt like a stage, and she, without even realizing it, was the leading actress in a play that no one, not even herself, truly understood. And then something unexpected happened. An ordinary night, which should have faded into memories of parties and dates, became the turning point in her story. An accident swift, unpredictable, inevitable. The world she knew from, in an instant, the luxurious life, the cars, the expensive clothes, the fake smiles, everything vanished. When Clara woke, there was no mansion, no glittering lights, no glamour. All that remained was confusion, pain, and the agonizing feeling that something essential had been ripped from her. With no memory, no past, and no clues about who she really was, Clara found herself in a completely unexpected place. A humble orphanage with simple walls, worn floors, and the smell of home-cooked food. Children ran through the hallways, some laughing, others watching her curiously, unaware that the woman introducing herself to them led a life she could never have imagined. The shock of reality was immediate and absolute. Accustomed to controls, orders, and privileges, she was now surrounded by simplicity, by genuine but unfamiliar affection. Every gesture, every word, every look seemed to create a bridge between the past she couldn't remember and the present she needed to discover. And in the midst of this new world, a strange sensation began to form within Clara. Something deep, almost imperceptible, but that seemed to pulse in her chest. A look, a voice, a gesture from someone from the past who seemed to know her intimately, even if she couldn't quite recognize it. It was as if the universe was giving her a second chance, not to regain what she'd lost, but to discover who she truly was. Curiosity, fear, hope, and anxiety mingled, creating a whirlwind of emotions Clara had never felt before. And as she tried to adapt to the routine of the orphanage, a silent question crept into her mind and the hearts of those watching her. Who was Clara really? Who was she before she lost everything? And who could she become now? Every small gesture, every moment of contact with the children, every fragmented memory seemed to push her toward something greater, something that would change not only her life but also those around her. Fate, unexpected and mysterious, had placed Clara in that place for a reason. Something or someone was waiting for her, and when that encounter finally happened, nothing would ever be the same again. Without remembering who she was, Clara found herself thrust into a world that bore no resemblance to the luxury or comfort she was accustomed to. Each morning became a challenge. Each movement required adaptation. She observed the daily life of the orphanage with curious and suspicious eyes. Children ran through the hallways, laughed simply, played with things she had never had: threadbare balls, books with worn pages, laughter that echoed like innocent music. Everything was new, strange, and at the same time fascinating. Life there had no glittering gold, no grand parties, no empty applause. It had something deeper: genuine affection, silent care, true attention. But Clara felt out of place. Every gesture she tried to imitate, every smile she tried to replicate, seemed out of toys, telling secrets. She watched hugging each other without pretense, and felt a mixture of nostalgia and strangeness inside her. It was as if these children knew the pain of loneliness and abandonment in a way she had never understood, and yet they welcomed her without judgment. No matter how hard she tried to fit in, something inside her kept her away, as if an invisible barrier prevented her from fully connecting. For the first few days, Clara was lost in her own thoughts, trying to understand who she saw in the orphanage mirror. The woman reflected there was nothing like the powerful heiress who once walked its marble corridors. Every detail of her former life seemed erased, fragments of memories that surfaced like shadows, a smell, a voice, a familiar object, but never complete, never clear enough to guide her. She was alone, and yet surrounded by people who somehow could help her find something she didn't even know she needed. And then something unexpected happened. Amidst the children's confusion, the routine of simple tasks, and the occasional silence of the cafeteria, a visitor approached. There was something in the way she walked, the way she looked at Clara, that made the young woman's heart beat faster. It was an intense look full of recognition, and at the same time a whisper filled with doubt, hope, and surprise. Clara. The name pierced the air like a pang in Clara's chest. She paused, unsure of what to feel, unsure of how to react. How could anyone recognize her when she couldn't even remember herself? The voice that had spoken her name felt familiar, as if it were connected to a part of her life that remained hidden, protected, hidden in the shadows of her lost memory. Every second that passed made the silence heavier, more charged with expectation. Clara hesitated. Her eyes met the visitor's, and for an instant, everything around her disappeared. The children, the plain walls, the distant noise of the orphanage. Only that gaze remained, that moment which seemed to carry decades of untold history. A wave of emotions began to course through her body: fear, curiosity, hope, and a strange sense of belonging. It was as if an invisible thread was pulling her towards something that was about to change everything, something that promised answers but also more questions. And so, in that silent, mysterious moment, Clara realized her life was about to turn a completely new page. An unexpected encounter, a whispered name, a glance that spanned time. Everything conspired to create a reunion no one could have predicted. Something inside her was beginning to awaken, a spark of memory, of emotion, of connection. But it wasn't time to understand everything yet. The next chapter was just beginning, and what came next had the potential to transform not only her story, but the lives of everyone around her. That moment held promise and suspense. The audience felt the same tension as Clara, the anticipation of what would be revealed, the curiosity to discover who truly stood before her, and the certainty that fate had something unexpected and thrilling in store. Each second seemed to pulse, inviting everyone to remain attentive, eager for the next moment when the story would finally begin to unfold. It was Lara, the childhood friend Clara had almost forgotten, the one who somehow had always carried a part of her history with her, even though time had tried to erase all memories. When Clara's eyes met Lara's, something deep awakened within her, a vague, confusing yet powerful sensation, as if a lost part of her own identity were there, before her eyes calling her back. For a moment, everything Clara knew seemed distant, almost irrelevant. The mansion, the luxury, the parties, the empty applause, none of it mattered. What mattered was that moment, that presence, that embrace that overflowed with a connection she didn't fully understand, but felt viscerally. Tears came without warning. First, a timid trickled down her face, then a long, silent cry, filled with feelings Clara hadn't even known existed within her. Lara, in turn, reached out and embraced her tenderly, with the same delicacy of a friend who knew every part of her soul, even if she couldn't remember. The embrace lasted seconds that felt like eternities, and with each moment, fragmented memories began to emerge. Childhood laughter, hidden games in gardens of the past, whispered conversations in dark rooms. Each fragment came like a spark, a light that slowly illuminated the path back to who Clara truly was. But at the same time, the confusion remained. Memories came in flashes and disconnected fragments, and each memory that emerged seemed to raise more questions than answers. How could anyone forget their own life, their family, everything they had built? And even more disturbing, who would she become when those memories finally emerged? The doubt was heavy, almost suffocating, and Clara felt her heart ache at the thought of what awaited her outside that orphanage. The safety of that simple environment contrasted with the complexity of her previous life. Luxury and wealth might seem a world away now, but they were still there, and one day she would have to face them again. Lara, sensing the turmoil Clara carried within, held her hand firmly, conveying not only affection but also trust. She knew something Clara couldn't yet fully grasp, that those faded and confused memories that lost life were not the end, but merely the beginning of something much greater, a reunion with the past that carried with it lessons, challenges, and, above all, the chance to discover the true value of everything Clara thought she knew. As Clara tried to piece together the pieces, the audience felt the same tension and anxiety she did. Every look, every gesture, every tear created a direct connection with the viewer. The silent question hung in the air, unsettling and irresistible. Would Clara be able to remember her past life? She faced the people, the secrets, and the choices she had left behind? Or would her memory, when it finally returned, bring only pain and confusion, challenging everything she believed to be true? The moment was delicate, charged with emotion and anticipation. The reunion with Lara wasn't just a memory of the past. It was the gateway to an uncertain future, a bridge between who Clara was and who she could become. Every second of the embrace, every fragment of memory emerging, kept everyone on edge, anxious for the next step in this story that blended mystery, redemption, and the eternal search for identity and belonging. And so, in the silence that followed the embrace, something became clear. Clara's journey was just beginning. The past waited to be discovered, the present required adaptation, and the future promised revelations no one could foresee. What came next could change everything, not only Clara's life, but also the way everyone around her would view love, friendship, and the true essence of family. Perhaps Clara's memory would never fully return, but somehow that didn't matter as much as it might seem. What she found at the orphanage transcended everything she had accumulated over a life surrounded by luxury and appearances. There, amidst simple walls and hallways filled with children's laughter, Clara discovered something no amount of wealth could buy: the genuine warmth of a hug, the sincerity of a smile, the quiet trust of someone who accepts you exactly as you are. Every gesture from the children, every kind gesture from the orphanage staff, every word from Lara made it clear that the true value of life wasn't in material possessions, titles, or grand parties. It was in the human connections that endure, even when the world seemed to fall apart. She learned that time and memory can be treacherous, erasing faces, places, and moments. But the true love, the kind not measured by gifts or fortune, has a strength capable of transcending any barrier. Clara realized that while she might have lost her past, she was gaining something far greater, a gift of authenticity, simplicity, and belonging. Something money could never buy, something that remained intact even in the face of loss, confusion, and uncertainty. And perhaps for the first time in her life, she felt peace, a peace that came from self-acceptance and gratitude for what life still had to offer. And as she watched the children playing in the courtyard, she felt that every laugh, every hug, every gesture of affection was a silent reminder. Not everything lost is forever. Sometimes loss is an opportunity to find something we never imagined we needed. A lesson Clara learned the hard way, but also the truest, that the value of life is not in what we possess, but in what we share, in what we feel, and in what we build with others. In the end, Clara understood that her story didn't need to be about memory or wealth. It needed to be about real experiences, about relationships, about the courage to reinvent herself and embrace an unexpected life. The orphanage, with its simplicity and affection, became her anchor, a place where she could be herself without masks, without pressure, without outside expectations. And in that humble place, Clara found what many spend their entire lives searching for: true love, sincere friendship, and the priceless feeling of belonging. Practical application for you. Now think about your own life. What have you been pursuing that deep down doesn't bring true happiness? How often do we cling to appearances, status, or material possessions, believing they complete us, when in reality, what matters most is the little things: a hug, a gesture of affection, a true friendship, or a moment of genuine connection. Reflect on this. Share your experience and inspire others to see beyond the superficial. We want to hear from you. Have you ever lost something you thought was essential, but found something even more valuable? Share your story in the comments and inspire others with your experience. Did you like Clara's story? So don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to follow more moving stories that touch the heart. Each story has a lesson, and we want you to be part of this journey of discovery, emotion, and reflection.